Hi, everyone. It's Michelle Howe. It's so nice to have you here with me today. I have a very special guest that I'm interviewing, conversing with, discussing with. She's a fellow light worker. I want to tell you a little bit about her. And of course, we're going to get into what she does, who she is, how she sees the role of awakening, spirituality, lessons, advancing in your soul's mission. Um, that we're all here learning, right? And of course, she's a fellow empath, so that's perfect for us. Let me just bring her in right this second. And here is Ann Perry. Hi, Ann.
Michelle, thanks so much for having me on.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. I want to tell everyone a little bit about you, and I'm sure there's more will come out as we talk, but Ann Perry has held a place in the healing arts since 2001 when she first discovered Reiki. She went on to become a Reiki Master teacher with hundreds of students worldwide. In 2002, Ann discovered that an understanding of numerology provided her with amazing insights into her clients. She has since created an active numerology practice where she currently offers numerology readings and classes. She's a certified soul coach and master divine healer. She's a certified scientific hand analyst with certifications in hypnotherapy, EFT, and integrated energy healing. She is also a soul signature guide. Oh my gosh. Well, you have a lot.
All that.
Anne is the founder and owner of the Clarity Seekers community, where she gets the opportunity to support those who are seeking their life purpose and soul signatures. When Anne isn't working, she can be found sharing time with her family on the east coast of Nova Scotia, as well as her home in Jamaica. I did not know that. Jamaica's awesome. She is passionate about her dog Piper and a special horse named Treasure. Her website, if you want to learn more, is annperrynumerologist.com. All right, Anne. You've been around a long time. This is a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff for sure. Actually, a lot of it I'd forgotten I'd even done, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I know it all kind of fades in the background after a while. You're like, you've done that. On to the next thing. Tell me a little bit, like, did you ever, like, this is all spiritual, like your whole path now is spiritual focused. Was there a time when you were young where you didn't know any of these like things were even around, or how would you characterize yourself?
As early as I can remember, I was about 7 years old. I desperately wanted to go to church, but my parents wouldn't take me to church because both of them had been raised in very strict religious households. And they figured as soon as they were free of that, they were not going to include their children in that. So I begged my parents to take me to church because I just wanted to go talk to Jesus and eat arrowroot cookies and drink apple juice and color, but they wouldn't take me. So I guess I must have been a bit relentless because I remember my mother getting me all dressed up one Sunday morning, and she walked me to the end of the driveway, and I was really excited because I thought, this is it. Yes, she's going to take me to church finally. But she didn't. She took my hand, she opened it up, she took a dime, placed it in my hand, closed my hand, and she said, the church is that way. So here I was, 7 years old, walking to the church by myself, desperate to figure out what this is all about. So did I know I was spiritual? What does a 7-year-old know about spirituality? No, I did not know that. But I knew that there was something bigger than me and it was calling me in. So I got to the church and it was a lot of big people walking around, and hustling their kids around and stuff. And I didn't know what else to do. I just kind of went into the big people's church and sat there and tried to pretend like I knew what I was doing. But, the hymnals and whatnot, I couldn't read them. And so I just kind of faked it. But from then on, for years, I did what I called church shopping. And it wasn't until I discovered Reiki that I realized that I'm not going to find what I'm looking for inside the confines of a church, and understand that I'm totally okay with the people who do. That's fantastic. You got to find it wherever you find it. But for me, it wasn't there. So when I started to feel the energy running through my hands, that's when I really made my connection to spirit. But I always had an interest. I used to my cat would catch a bird and of course kill the bird, and I'd bury the bird and 2 days later, I'd be digging it up to see if it had gone to bones, like I was just that kid, so curious about death and the life after and
Wow.
all that stuff.
Did you,
Yeah.
so were your parents very religious, or they were not religious?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, their religious background was so strict that they were like, we are so done. That's not going to be part of our house. So
Okay.
I definitely was not raised in a religious household.
So as you were growing up, did you empathy, the word sensitivity, would you say that that was in some way active in your life, or not really, not yet?
I was always very sensitive, but it really hasn't been until the last maybe 5 years or more that I've realized just how empathic I am. I didn't really tap into that because I think empathy and sensitivity, I mean, they're defined differently by different people. And I just somehow wasn't fitting the mold. I actually, in preparation for today, I was looking up the word empath in the dictionary, and it's described as an empath is a person with the paranormal ability to apprehend the mental or emotional state of another individual. But I feel that it goes way beyond that, and if I had just read that, or if another aspiring empath read that, they might feel intimidated by that, So it's really a very personal journey. For me, I know that I'm a bug empath. I know that I am a plant empath. I hate trimming plants. I hate squishing bugs. I hate walking on ants, that I'm really sensitive to all of that kind of stuff. And certainly to animals and people and all of it. But I never would have described myself as that.
Because with people, it wasn't so clear to you.
Right. Music got to me. Like just listening to music would bring me to tears easily.
Yeah.
I can feel the emotion of the artist. I can, when video came out, then it became even more so. I'll just choke talking about somebody. My favorite pastime, my guilty pleasure is watching America's Got Talent, because I love watching people just go for it. Even if their talent is nil, they believe they have it. They get up there and they've got the guts to go up there and deliver it. I'm just like in tears thinking how wonderful it is that they don't care what anybody thinks. They're just going for it,
That's the
yeah.
highs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so has your life been pretty simple and smooth, or how has your life been?
Well, let's just see, 2 marriages, 2 divorces. Yeah, well, you know what? I don't look at it as difficult. I really don't. I've gone through a lot. We went through a lot with my brother, who had flesh-eating disease back in 1998, I believe it was, and he died 5 times in one summer. And thankfully, he's still with us, but he was pronounced dead 5 times. In fact, they called us one day and said, he's gone. You better prepare and you better get the funeral ready. And I was living in Halifax. He was living in Toronto. So of course I went through all that all day believing he was dead. So it's very strange when I meet people who lost siblings. I'm like, oh, I totally get it. Well, have you lost one? No. Well, how can you get it? Because I lost him for a day. I didn't find out until 11 o'clock that night that he was still alive. So spirit has a sense of humor sometimes, but anyway, it was yeah. So I've had all kinds of like wow moments kind of thing, but I don't see my life as difficult. I just see it rich and full. And
Well, it's not supposed to be boring.
no,
It's not
no,
supposed to be boring. If it's boring, you're
I know.
definitely like,
I know.
you won the lottery this time around. This is completely boring. But that's
Yeah.
not either, because you grow through it, and some lifetimes are harder than others. Now, you are a numerologist. That's
Mhm.
where you landed. That's where you really found a love in your life. Tell
Yeah.
the audience a little bit about the numerology part of and how that discipline, philosophy, practice has provided so much richness to it.
Well, my life path number is a 7. And so the 7 knows intuitively that they're intended to specialize in something, right? They don't necessarily know what it is, but they're meant to specialize in something. And so I would take a lot of courses, and I would say, oh, that's it. I'm going to be a hypnotherapist. I'm going to do past life. Not so much. oh, I'm going to do scientific hand analysis, and that's going to be the coolest thing. Not so much, right? And the list goes on. I mean, I'm certified in many, many things, and worked hard for those certifications. But at the end of the day, I was chasing all these certificates that would maybe define who I was, but none of them really did. And I actually had a company called Hands on Purpose. And the reason I called it Hands on Purpose was I knew I could throw anything under that umbrella until I figured out what fit. Yeah. And then several years ago, I decided the only thing that really has stuck, that really makes sense to me, that really speaks to me, is numerology. And I believe that I teach people how to speak numbers. Those of us who are sevens, yourself included, we like to solve puzzles. And it just occurred to me that the puzzles I like to solve are people, right? I like to look into the numbers and say, hey, you know, this is why you are the way you are. This is who you are. This is what you're here for. These are the challenges. And, you know, you talk about, has my life been difficult? Well, yeah, there's lots of stuff I could say was difficult, no question. Alcoholic dad, mentally unwell mother, you know, all that crap that a lot of us go through, and many of us go through much worse. But the beautiful thing about numerology is now I understand it, because now I can go back and I can look at their numbers and go, okay.
Yeah.
Now I understand. And that's my biggest goal, is to help people to see other people in a different light.
So it's funny because I do enough numerology to be a little dangerous, but I can see the patterns that people are bringing forward. And then I see certain birthdays and I'm like, oh my God, they're dealing with, like, it's almost like triple and double, triple, quadruple of a certain number really puts you off balance very easily, or you're going to be frustrated. And guess what? Because you're missing these numbers, skills, abilities to look at life. Like, so we don't all come equipped with the same talents, abilities, rays. I don't even know what you want to call all those qualities, but.
Well, we choose the numbers that go into our date of birth based upon the lessons that we plan on learning this time around. So one of the things I do a little differently than many numerologists is, rather than saying, you're a 7 life path number, if I remember, I think you're a 34-7. I don't even know if that's
but if you did it your way, it'd be a 16-7.
Right. Okay. So so I am a 16-7. So when you add up my date of birth, and we break things down independently. So I was born March 25th of 1959. March comes down as a single digit. It's a 3. The 25th day, add the 2 and the 5 together, that comes down as a 7. When we add 1959 together, it comes to 24, and 2 plus 4 equals 6. So now we're going to add 3 plus 7 plus 6 comes to 16, 7. So that's what we call a composite life path number, rather than being like, my son is a simple 7. He's just a 7. It adds up however way you want to do it. He adds up as a 7. But in your case, in my case, when we do it, and this method actually came from Matthew Oliver Goodwin. It was the one that discovered this method. And I'm not saying it's the only method. I'm just saying it's the one I prefer. It creates what's called a sub lesson, or a composite number. So the sub lessons to the 7. So you and I, we are 7 life path numbers. That's the big fat hairy deal that we have to conquer. That's learning about surrender and trust, and learning how to get out of our heads and that sort of thing. But the 1 and the 6 tell us, how do we do that? Okay, so the 1 is developing confidence within ourselves. The 6 is learning how not to take on all the responsibilities of the world. It's learning balance. You know, it's learning to release the need for perfectionism. That's a tough one.
By the way, audience, we're both born on March 25th.
I forgot that. That's right.
Yes,
I forgot that.
March 25th, 1959. I'm born on March 25th, 1968.
Yeah, isn't it funny?
It's funny because the year 1959 and 1968 does come down to 24-6 both ways, like for both of us. I've always calculated my number as 34-7.
And that's okay. So long as you can identify with the sub lessons of the 3 and the 4. So the 3, honestly, Michelle, you don't feel like a 34-7 to me. But that's just me observing. But if you feel like a 34-7, then that's what you are. It's not. Well,
what are the sub lessons of a 34-7?
Well, the 3 relates to learning how to express yourself, learning how to communicate. it's learning how to drop the inner critic, because we do
Yeah.
have all of us have inner critics, but for the number 3 is like a bigger lesson. But closer to the slash, if you call yourself a 34/7, 3 + 4 = 7. The slash is basically an equal sign. The 4 sits closest to the slash, so that would be the bigger lesson for you. Okay, and that's learning how to be organized. This is learning how to be a planner. This is learning how to be paying attention to the details. You've got all that. I honestly see that in you. We've worked together for the last couple of weeks. You're on your game, right? So myself personally,
You think it's a 16/7?
I feel that you're a 16/7, but it doesn't matter what I feel. What's
Right.
important is that me as a numerologist helps you to see both sides of the coin,
Right.
and that you get to decide, because you did decide what your life path number is. So now, just because there's a whole bunch, and there are several different calculation methods out there on how to figure out what your life path number is. That's what we're talking about, life path numbers that come from your date of birth. But it's important that you tap into what feels right for you. I could not connect the dots to the 34, the 3 and the 4. It just did not make sense to me. I knew I was a 7, undeniable. Knew I was a 7. The 7 is
So the sub lessons with the 1 and the 6, 16/7, 1 is leadership, correct?
Yeah, leadership, creativity, originality,
Yep.
being the pioneer.
Yep.
You're already an
I already
Aries,
got that. I got
right?
that. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, it's
And
some of those sub lessons you will have overcome.
yes, yeah.
So you're not going to feel them as much either. But you really do need to study the 3 and the 4 and the 1 and the 6 before you can figure out how you're going to become the best 7 you can be.
Yep, I hear you loud and clear. So knowing these, I mean, have you ever read, what's the name of his book? The Life You Were Born
You're born to live.
by Dan Millman. He goes through some of this as well.
Yeah. He's actually, I think his book is the Bible, as far as I'm concerned. This is an older version.
Awesome. It's an awesome
It is.
book. Yeah.
It absolutely is. And for a while there, I kind of that was my first introduction to numerology, was that book, right? And he would describe me as a 34/7. And I just couldn't, like I said, I couldn't connect the dots. When I learned Matthew Oliver Goodwin's methodology, when he says break things down independently, the reason for that is because your day of birth is also a core number. When you just add the numbers straight across, you're kind of ignoring that day number, right? Which is the core number. Now, for example, if you were born on the 11th day or the 22nd day, that's a big fat hairy deal, because that brings in the older soul, that brings in the master energy, a bigger need to learn lessons. So we don't want to blend that in. So that's kind of the hill I was living and dying on, right? Is to say that Matthew's way is the only way because it worked for me and it was light bulb moment for me and the whole thing. But I don't feel that way anymore. I feel that even though the core number of the day of birth is important, I still feel that you need to do the calculations both ways and then really study it. Like, if you're curious about it, take the time to study it, because this is your blueprint.
Yeah.
And it's, I can't get it right. I can decipher it. I'm an interpreter. I help you speak numbers.
Gotcha.
But I know some people are disappointed that I've taken this new stand, that I'm not all hell bent for leather, that it has to be Matthew's way. A lot of people liked that because there was some certainty in who they were. There's no confusion in it because Anne says it was this, right? But
you've taken that stance for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me why. Why have you taken that stance?
Well, just I guess because I've done thousands of readings over the years, and I can read a person intuitively very well to know whether they're connecting with what I'm sharing and when they're not. And when I feel that they're just kind of not connecting with what I'm sharing, I'll pause and go, all right, let's look at it from this perspective.
Yeah.
Do you tap into these lessons? Because this is all lessons, guys. When we're talking about date of birth, there's no gifts and talents here. That comes from your birth name. We're just talking about lessons. And I feel that when we understand the lessons that we've chosen to learn, life just gets easier. When we understand the lessons that our parents were intended to learn, we can accept them more easily, our children more easily, our colleagues more easily. Everyone has a soul signature. Everyone has their own soul's contract. Everyone has their own DNA. None of us are the same.
No, no.
We've all got ancestral history that is all wrapped up into this too.
Yeah. So you said something, I just want to bring you back a second. You said the blueprint, the birthday,
Mhm.
that blueprint is wrapped up in the lessons that you're here learning. It'll reveal the lessons that you're here learning. The
Yes.
birth name will tell you about the gifts you came in with. Is that clear? Is that correct?
That's correct. So the name on the birth certificate, regardless if there was a screw up and somebody messed it up and didn't spell it correctly, the first published name on the first published birth certificate, because some people have more than one birth certificate, that is creating what's called your expression number. So prior to your birth, you would have given a lot of consideration to what you wanted your life path number to be, what lessons you wanted to learn. You would also consider what number, because all numbers hold vibrations and predictable characteristics. What number do I want to support me on my journey? In your case, my case is 7, right? What do I want to bring with me? So we would have sent forth a message telepathically to whomever named us in this lifetime. And we would have said, hey, I don't care what you call me. You can call me whatever you want, but you have to make sure that my name will vibrate at the vibration of in my case, it was a 5, because I wanted the 5 to support me on my journey as a 7. So a 7 is somebody that is quite introspective and reflective, likes to meditate, is big into woo-woo, very spiritual. They like a lot of time by themselves. But I couldn't have been an effective teacher, spiritual teacher, if I hadn't brought in the 5 to support it. I can do live interviews. I can do TV. I can do radio. I don't care. None of that phases me because I brought the 5 with me, right? So however your name vibrates is a choice where you brought it in, that number in specifically to support you on your journey as whatever your life path number is.
How you express yourself in the world.
And how people see you as well. And then when you take it a little step further and you start looking at the vowels in the birth name, the vowels in your birth name create what's called the soul urge or the heart's desire. This is what you're really passionate about. And many people don't know what they're passionate about because this is a 3rd core number, right? So it's kind of down the chain. The life path number is the most intense, followed by the expression number, followed by the heart's desire number. And sometimes, people who have, for example, a 6 life path number, love to be of service, are totally there for everybody else but themselves. So they get lost in everybody else and they forget what they're here for and what they're passionate about. So there's a lot of contributing factors to that.
So we're complex. That's what you're telling me. We are complex.
You know it, layer upon layer upon layer, right? There's all kinds of things to look at.
So how do we, because on top of all that, that is who people want us to be, who we think we are, who we want, we want to conform, we want to be loved, we want to belong, we want all these we want all this success to come to us, and we can identify with all these outside measurements or ideas or thoughts and really lose track of who we are at an essence. When you strip away all of everything that we think about, that we think we value, who are we?
We are who we choose to believe we are. Right? We are who we choose. In fact, I wrote that down. It's interesting you're asking me that question. I live by, as you believe, so it is. What you choose to believe about yourself is truth. If you feel that you're stupid, guess what? That's true.
Well, no, I'm tapping into in my thought process, I'm tapping into when you take away all the noise, and all the ideas of what you are, and you just sit in just a nice bath of no thought. That is a nice, safe place to be.
Absolutely.
You're just bathing without any noise whatsoever, and you're present to what that is. And that to me is like it's a nice place. I don't have a lot of chatter going on. There's not a lot of angst going on. It's just me really being I'm watching, and there's no rush for anything. There's no goals. There's no noise.
No
That
agenda.
to me is my, it's my happy place. This is
Right.
my happy place. And I want to be in that happy place as much as possible. So anything and everything that gets in the way of that happy place, or that is isn't necessarily like welcome for any length of time. You have to let me be in that place, and that's me expressing my spirit through
Mhm.
what I do, as opposed to all the other myriad of things I could be chasing in the world.
Well, I mean, when you look at the life path number that you and I chose, the 167, the one that really sticks out to me is the 6, because the 6 brings in a lesson that you and I chose around perfectionism. We naturally come in as perfectionists, but as we mature and we start to get in touch with the idea of perfectionism, and to understand that perfectionism is perfection is subjective. You know, you and I could look at the same painting and you could go, "Oh my God, Anne, look at that! Isn't that amazing? Isn't that gorgeous?" And I'd be looking at you like you got 3 heads. I hate that. I don't like it. It doesn't work for me at all. So one person's idea of perfection is different from another person's idea of perfection. So the lesson in this is learning how to drop the bar and to be okay with ourselves, you know, to be okay with what we perceive as perfection. We don't need the approval of someone else. We just need to know that it's okay. So yeah, there is a lot of noise that we bring in, but that's why we're here. You know, we leave source as a light body to come in as a physical body, and then we spend our lives trying to figure out how do we get back there, right? So we bring in this agenda with us of all these lessons, and kind of like once you've climbed the ladder of all the lessons and you think you're done, then you choose to go back to source and write a new contract and do it again, possibly, or maybe you just feel that's it. That's all I need to do. But yeah, I mean, that's what I love about numerology, is that it really helps to identify the challenges you invited. You cannot be a victim. Like, with no disrespect to the number 4, if you happen to be a number 4 life path number, the 4 has a tendency to take on the victim mentality. They have a tendency to blame the world, external influences and whatnot, and stuff happening. They just tend to wear that t-shirt. And the reason for that is because they come in with this uncanny ability to focus better than anybody else. But the ability to focus often goes to what is not right in their world. Because whatever, you know, if you have a hangnail, right? Let's say you and I are having a conversation and you've got this throbbing hangnail, it's driving you crazy, and I'm trying to talk to you. What are you thinking about?
Hangnail.
You're thinking about the hangnail. Exactly. Why? Because it's right in front of you and it's irritating the crap out of you, right? It's right there in front of your face. So you're going to focus on that. And whatever we give our energy, attention, and focus to is going to get bigger, right? So this is kind of the vice of the 4, is to learn how to focus on what is good rather than what is not. So they can go
Amplify. For some reason, humans, me included, have an uncanny ability to, all this could be going great, but the one thing, that one thing that's not going according to where you want it, that's what draws your attention. Like, everything's perfect except for this thing over there. Did I tell you what happened to me yesterday? Blah 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 blah. Like that becomes such a big thing because it didn't go according to my will. Like, it's almost like how I want the world to be, how it is. And it can't be how it is. It's got to be how I want it to be. It's not exactly right. And that perfectionist tendency is going to sink you every single time.
And it comes from a sense of a lack of worth.
Yes.
Right. So those of us who are influenced by the energy of the 6 are naturally wanting to be the perfectionists. And so when things don't go as planned, it's like we paint a painting and the person's going, "Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I love what you've done here." Right. But did you see up here that I didn't quite get the shading quite right? And it's not right, because
we have to find and poke a hole in what is otherwise perfect, because it's not perfect enough, is almost like an
excuse,
sabotaging kind of You will never be worthy enough. You will never. It doesn't matter how many followers you have, how famous you are, how many people think you're great. You
Mhm.
inherently don't believe that,
Right.
or will
Yeah,
find a hole in what that is. Yeah.
exactly. And that's very, very common for the sixes. Now, if we take it a little step further, let's say this person with the 6 life path number or an influence, a sublesson or something, a 6 is somewhere in their chart. Now let's throw in a master number into the mix. You know, a master number is whenever we see 2 numbers duplicated. So 11 would be a master number, doubling 1. 22, master number, double 2. 33, and so on and so forth. So you put in a master number. The master number implies this is an older soul that we're dealing with. This is somebody who has been around the block many times. This is somebody who's got the t-shirts, you know, but they signed a contract that said, I'm going to do something that will support humanity in a way that they've never been supported before. It's a big fat hairy deal that they feel, and this sense of responsibility, but they'll often sabotage their efforts because they feel like, you know, oh, this must be what I'm supposed to do. I must be a holistic coach, you know, and then they get all the credentials and whatnot, and they get there and it's kind of like, no, that doesn't feel quite right. So they sabotage their efforts and they drop the bar until the next thing comes along. But it's very difficult for them because the sense of responsibility to get it right is huge.
Any double number, 11,
Any
20, 33, those are the top 3 double numbers.
Right. So the double 1 is double the intensity to learn the lessons related to the number 1. Now, the 1 is a masculine energy. Okay. So the 1 is all about drive and force and making it happen and going after it and chasing it, kind of thing. It's about originality, authenticity, creativity, leadership, originality, independence, confidence, all those sorts of things, right? So those, and the people that I specialize with are the 11s, because I feel that they are probably the most misunderstood of all of the life path numbers.
They know a lot, but
Yeah.
they're not necessarily given the same amount of, I don't want to say respect, credibility. Nobody listens. So that was a thing. Nobody's listening to them for some reason, but
Well,
I have a different, yeah.
that's true. But there's a reason for that, right? So we've got double 1, double the intensity of the 1 energy, push, push, push. Well, 1 plus 1 equals 2. So ultimately their life path number is a 2. They're an 11, 2. Okay. So the 2 is the feminine. The 2 is learning how to receive. So here's the 11 that says, I know, somewhere I know I'm an older soul. I don't like hanging out with little kids. I prefer to hang out with the adults, right? I'm very, very sensitive. I'm very intuitive. I see things differently. But the deal is their vibration is up here. They vibrate up here. The rest of us kind of vibrate down here.
Yeah.
And they're always trying to navigate the distance between here and here so they'll fit in, because they're a 2 and they need partnership. Yeah. But they're saying like, okay, but how much can I risk? How much can I push before they reject me? Because the worst thing that can happen to an 11 is rejection, because the 11 is here to do something. And if they haven't got people to do it with, they can't accomplish what they're here to do. Right. So it's kind of you know,
they're learning how to do that. And it's hard because if you're up here and everyone else is down here and you're afraid of being rejected,
yeah,
you might lower who and what you are. Like, so finding that way to
yes,
appreciate and grow with them without getting swallowed up by them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest complaint I get from the 11s is that my parents said I was too sensitive. My parents said I was too clingy, too needy, too whatever. I was just too whatever. And the message that they're getting is, I'm not good enough. I'm overly sensitive. I'm overly whatever. And so they shut down. You know, 11s are born being extremely intuitive, very clairvoyant, very tapped in to spirit. Like they have their share of invisible friends and they're not invisible to them. But the parent is going, why can't you be a little bit more like Johnny? Because we get Johnny. So it's kind of inconvenient for us for you to be like up here, because we just don't get up here. If you wouldn't mind just dropping your vibration and being who we want you to be, that would be more convenient for us. And because the 11 fears rejection, they will do that. It's painful for them, but they will drop their vibration. They become depressed. Depression is very, very common with 11s because they feel squashed. They feel like they have to meet everybody's expectation.
Restricting who you are as opposed to being like who
Right.
you are. Just be who
Right.
you are and let that
Yeah.
lead the way. Right. So,
Right. Because those double ones say, I need to be me.
mhm.
I need to partner up with you too, but please, I need to be me. I need to be creative. I need to be authentic. Let me be that. But people who are not of the same vibration don't listen to them because they don't understand them. They just don't get that vibe.
So what is the solution for them when people don't get that vibe?
Courage. It takes a lot of courage to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, to say I matter. The 11s know that they're meant to create something original. They're meant to do them. They're not meant that one of the biggest tips I can give an 11 is you're not meant to be like someone else. So stop comparing yourself, because you're not meant to be a better writer than J.K. Rowling. You're not meant to be a better artist than Da Vinci was. You're meant to do you. And that can be lonely at the top, for sure. But that's where your satisfaction will come from. That's where your happiness will come from. If you can just tough it out and say, no, I gotta do me.
Well, isn't that the case for everyone where happiness and joy comes from is from being who you are?
Yeah. But do many people know who they are?
No.
Right. So there's so many, I've been studying a little bit about gene keys and human
Yeah.
design and all those sorts of things. When you add all those elements to it, it becomes so fascinating to really explore your blueprint much deeper than astrology and numerology can even show you.
I find that I've studied a lot of those as well. I find that the more it's one thing to study something and to have an awareness of what it is, but it's another thing to live it and be
Yeah.
it
And
and
apply it.
allow yourself to express and move through the solution, because everything is going to come into your awareness. Like, I don't know that it's hard work to shift, but it is a process of allowing yourself
Yeah.
move to the
Absolutely.
next thing and the next thing, and without, have I gotten there yet? Are we there yet, mom?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so
True.
tell
Yeah.
me, 11, 22, 33. One is the master number, a master builder, a master teacher,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Do the lifetimes become increasingly more difficult? Or
There's no way to know that, Michelle. And that's where trust comes in, right? We have to trust. Some people believe that those who have the master numbers are sort of on their final journeys.
okay,
I'm not sure I agree with that, because if you don't get it right, and many master numbers don't get it right because they don't muster up enough courage to get it done, they self-sabotage. The pressure to do something is too great, so many of them don't accomplish what they're intended to do. In my mind, that means they got to come back and do it again. I'm not saying that everybody has to come in as a master number at any given time.
yeah,
I find the whole thing fascinating because honestly, when I got involved in numerology, all of the 11 started finding me. And I'm like, but I'm not an 11. Like, why me? Like, why do I have to be the messenger kind of thing? And
right.
I remember when I was chased by a coach that I was working with. She was an intuitive coach. She called me one morning and she said, Anne, man, she said, you're not listening again. I go, what do you mean? She said, you're not listening. Your guides are here and they're telling me to tell you, you got to get on YouTube. I'm like, I'm going on YouTube. Are you crazy? That's not happening. I'm not good enough, smart enough, experienced. Not, thanks for calling. It's not happening. And I hung up. And about 2 weeks later, another gal reaches out to me with the same story. I've just been told by spirit, you're not listening. You got to get with the program, blah, blah, blah. Right. So I put a video out on YouTube that morning and I just figured out how to upload it. And it was all about what it was like to be born on the 11th day. Very organic, no script, no nothing, just me talking about 11s. I uploaded it to YouTube with the intention of taking it down immediately because my 6 kicked in and went, oh, it's not perfect. You can't leave that up there, right? But I couldn't take it down because within minutes, like I'm talking 1 to 2 minutes, I was getting comments saying, oh my God, you see me, you hear me, you validate me. And this is what the master numbers are looking for, is the validation that someone does hear them, that someone does get them, someone does see their struggles, right? And that's kind of where me being the YouTube person, a YouTuber, I guess we're called, that's where that came from. Because of my need to help the 11s. And then to take that just one step a little further, my growth number, which comes from our names on our birth certificate, our first name published on our birth certificate. Interestingly enough, my name, ANN, vibrates at the 11. So that was a clue for me to say, okay, I know I'm meant to be a spiritual teacher, but what kind of spiritual teacher am I intended to be? I'm intended to service the master numbers, the master 11s. They need a voice. I guess I'm the voice. So
That's
even though I'm
awesome.
not an 11 per se, I do get them for some reason. And that's where it came from.
So what do you do when, like in my situation, on my birth certificate, my mom called me Michelle J. Kinsella. That was my name.
Mhm.
One L in the Michelle.
Published on your birth certificate?
My birth certificate. About 4 weeks later, she went back in, said, change that Michelle to 2 L's, please.
Okay.
And I did run those numbers at one point and they all added up to a 7, but I never did like as much as what you're saying, like going further and further.
So there's two theories. And this is where the math comes in. There's two theories to that. One might say that's the way the ink dried on the birth certificate with 1 L. So that creates your growth number. And that growth number, if I add it up correctly, just a second, 13, 21,
Your
24.
first name, right? The growth number?
Yeah. So your growth number, if it was Michelle with 1 L, would be a 1. Would be a 1. Now, if we add another L in there, excuse me, that would come up as a 4. Your growth number would be a 4. So it's up to you. You feel more like a 1 to me than you do a 4. But it doesn't matter what I feel, right? It matters what you feel. When you think about that, is it more important for you to be number 1 and to be successful and to do well and create things and be that pioneer? Or is it more important for you to develop stability and process and one step after the other and creating plans and structure and such?
Interestingly enough, I have spent probably my whole entrepreneurial career here. I've been doing this for over 10 years now. Yeah, 11, 12 years. I am always planning. I am always planning, and the leading part, but it's all going to the lead. I can get lost in my plan, and I also do get lost in my plan. I'm like, what was I doing? How many times do I have to do this again? Like I almost like, and I don't like the details of it because it feels stifling, but it would be nice to have it ramp it in, bring it in.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Right.
But because for whatever reason, I like the innovation. I like the leading. I like the creating. I like shocker, like bringing something that's going to be great on the scene. Now, executing it like that 4 step by step by step. I don't like step by step. Like I can plan, but actually do mind you.
There is a possibility then that you may be tapping into a 34/7 life path number, because that 4, the 4 is stifling to a degree, because it is asking you to pay attention to the details. It is asking you to put brick upon brick upon brick, right? And create these foundations. The 7 says, but I don't trust that. The 7 says, I got to go back. I drove, I locked my door, I got my car, I drove away a mile down the road. I'm like, did I lock my door? I know I locked my door. Did I lock my door? I got to go back. I got to check. Right. So that's
it's counterproductive. The 7 does that. That's interesting.
But right. But you're also looking at an even number of 4 against an odd number of 7. Right? Yeah.
Mind you. I was married on September 7th. I would have never picked a 7 back then. The odd numbers were not my thing. I'm like, okay, but this is the only day. September 7th. My dad died on September 7th.
Wow.
And I think that, 7 is definitely all over the place in my stuff. But yeah, some things are like they go against one another. They go against
but that's the whole point, right? That's the whole point of us learning what we've come to learn and knowing that our blueprints are all so different, and it makes it a whole lot more interesting. I just find that when I understand people, for example, when I used to work out in what my ex-husband used to call the real job, in workplace, the corporate place, I can remember being in that, and the first thing I wanted to know about people was their date of birth. And I used to say, oh, because maybe I'll get you a birthday cake. And I always did, because I thought I had to come good with my promise, right? But for me, it was so important. I had to know what their date of birth was, because I had to know who they were. And I remember working with a guy who was a 19-1 life path number. That's a karmic debt. And he was a miserable SOB. Like, he was horrible. Like, he just had a hate on for the world and people and whatnot. But I understood him, and I knew how to work with him.
Tell me about this karmic debt idea that comes up in numerology. I know a little bit about it, just enough. And I think they're the teens, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Yeah.
Like,
13/4.
Yep.
14/5.
Yep.
16/7. And 19/1. Those are the 4 karmic debts. So if you were born on any of those days, 13, 14, 16, or 19, you have the karmic debt. If your life path number comes up to that, if your expression number or your heart's desire number comes up with that, then you are experiencing a karmic debt. Now, let's get one thing clear. Karmic debts are not punishment. Karmic debts are your invitation to say, I screwed up in a previous lifetime. I was a bit of a badass. I'm now going to clean up that mess in this lifetime. You didn't have to. You could have skipped a lifetime. You could have said, I'll get around to that someday and I'll clean up that mess. But you said, this lifetime, I'm going to make amends for that. So someone born with a 13/4 karmic debt. Now, I also want to say that sometimes karmic debt influences can show up in cycles. So, for example, I am now in a 14/5 karmic debt influence. It's a cycle. I don't have the karmic debt of 14/5, but for a time being, it feels like it. So it causes me a lot of confusion. So let's start at the top. The 13, karmic debt number 13/4, relates to not being very focused in a previous lifetime. This is somebody who is lazy and unapplied, took the shortcuts, didn't do the work and whatnot. So in this lifetime, quite often that person turns into a workaholic, because they feel on some level they have to prove to people that they have a good, strong work ethic. But they will be met with obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. Because remember what I said about the 4? The 4 is about focus. They're being taught, you've got to focus on what is good. You got to focus on what's going well. You got to focus on the good stuff rather than falling into the trap. And that's where the 13/4 can often become a victim. This life is happening to me rather than for me and through me.
Yeah.
Okay? When we look at the 14/5, the 14/5 is quite different. The 14/5 says that in a previous lifetime, this person took some chances, were a little bit reckless. They spent their money irresponsibly. They were reckless, usually related to some form of an addiction that kind of took them in. So it could be food, drugs, alcohol, gambling, whatever. And they were too quick to respond to the addiction. So in this lifetime, the 14/5 typically has trouble with taking risks, because there's a little voice inside that says, oh, right, you remember that? Remember how that played out last time when you did that kind of random knee-jerk reaction thing? It doesn't work so well. So when we break down the 14/5, the 1, as is the case for all the karmic debt numbers, they all start with the 1. The 1 says, I must develop the confidence within myself. Then we go to the 4, to develop a step-by-step plan so that I can have the 5, which is the freedom that I so desire. I can't just make, I have to come up with a plan. I've got to stop. I have to pause. I have to think about it. I can't just buy that thing on Facebook, right? Right.
We know the back
inside joke. You just can't do that. You got to stop and pause and go, is this really a good idea or not, right? You're meant to have your freedom. The 5 is meant to experience life, but the 14/5 says, yeah, I've kind of been there and done that, and it didn't end well for me. I sacrificed everything I had. Everybody suffered because of my poor decisions. This time I got to get it right. This time I have to slow down the bus. Now we look at the 16/7. You asked, so here we go. 16/7 says that We betrayed a lot of people in our previous lifetimes.
Okay.
Typically, we cheated on our spouses, cheated on our lovers. We were whores in a previous lifetime.
Okay.
Not proud of it, but that's who we are, right? So what you and I will face in this lifetime are a lot of issues related to trust. People may not trust us for some reason, and we will feel mortified by that, and we will feel like we have to defend ourselves all the time. 16:7 says that in this lifetime, we might experience paranoia. Where were you? Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you text me? You said you're going to be home at such and such a time. Why didn't you do that? Blah, 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 right? Or you might attract that person to you that does that, right? The 16:7 implies the rise and the fall of the ego. So depending on where that 16:7 fits in your chart will determine kind of how you might experience it. So for example, a 16:7 in the heart's desire position, where the vowels come from in your birth name, that would imply broken relationships that went up in flames. Didn't see it coming. There it is. Boom, it's over. You could be the one that cheats. You could be the one that's cheated on. Either way, it's a tower moment. The tower's coming down, right? Number 16 tarot card is the tower. So that relates to numerology. So the 16:7, I mean, if it comes in the place of the expression number usually relates to career, a crash and a burn in the career. I call this the crash, burn, and learn number, by the way. So, but it is, you know, I remember when my ex-husband and I separated, and he accused me of having had an affair, and I didn't have an affair, but I suffered through the accusation that I had had one. It was terrible. It was brutal. And I went for 2 years. Anybody who would listen to me, I'd tell them I didn't have an affair, right? And eventually I began to think, A, nobody cares, and B, you're making yourself look guilty by the fact that you keep bringing this up, right? Sure. So I stopped doing that. But what occurred to me was that was the karmic debt being paid back. I needed to feel the pain of being accused of something I didn't do. Had I done it, I would have gone through it much differently, right? You can accept it. But it was so hard for me to accept, but I realized, but I was that person in a previous lifetime, and that's my payback. Right?
Well, it's often, it's so, if I didn't learn through experience and see lots of things happening and in touch with so many people that are in this mystical, esoteric, like I wouldn't have been able to put pieces together that even relate to path, like my behavior, the situations that have happened. It didn't just all of a sudden happen.
Right. Yes.
It didn't all of a sudden happen. There was a process and a purpose, and there was this whole thing was already there that I didn't even know was there, that it was already built up to what this is.
Right.
So, you know, you don't just all of a sudden have feelings out of the blue about something that you didn't even.
But you can't be in the dark, right? You can definitely. I know I certainly was in the dark.
You don't really know where it's coming from, why it's there, and you know you can wrap up stories around everything that you experience. Mm-hmm. The issue is, how are you handling it? How are you moving through it? Sure, whatever it is, it may not be a pleasant but you will move through it to the end of it, and then on you go. So it's the rite of passage. Certain things are going to come your way, and it's karmic.
Yeah.
How are you going to react to it?
Oh, yeah.
You didn't see it coming. It came from left field. Why did this happen to me? Did I attract this? Well, not consciously did you attract this, but it came to you. It serves a purpose.
That's right. And sometimes it's an agreement, and the karmic debts are an agreement. So when we look at the 19:1, that's the last of our karmic debts. When we look at that, 19:1 is somebody who was a leader in a previous lifetime, but I call them a bit of a hard-ass leader. This is somebody that led with a really heavy hand. This is someone who climbed the corporate ladder and stomped on people like bugs as they went ahead, looking over their shoulders, saying, you know, watch me eat my dust, kind of thing.
Yep.
So the 19:1 is somebody who is here to come back to be a leader yet again. But when we look at the 19:1, there's a 9. There's a 1 on either side. One on either side is egoic, right? And it's a more of an aggressive, more of a masculine energy. But the 9 in the center there is the humanitarian. It's the healer, right? The 9 says, all right, I need to embrace my role as a healer. I need to find ways to help you to help yourself. I need to help you go up that corporate ladder.
Yeah.
I need to let the light shine on you rather than on me. This
Yeah.
time it's all about you. My success is because I'm watching you be successful.
And these numbers, these karmic numbers can arise anywhere, whether it's your birth date, a culmination of all the life path numbers can reduce down to that, or could it be like just the year could reduce down to that?
Yep. I don't typically,
Don't really look at the year that same way.
when the year, well, for example, those born in 1984, that adds up to 22. Okay. So that has a universal vibration of 22 for that year. So those people born into that year will feel the influence of needing to be some kind of a builder of some kind, because the 22 is a 22-4, right? But when it comes to karmic debts and whatnot, I don't tend to really look at it that way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's not right. I just personally don't observe it that way. Yeah.
All right. So one last question, because I think we've been on quite a bit. All right. Tell me about 2023, the energy of 2023. What is that doing to people? What is it not doing? I mean, I know that every person will experience it their own way for their own benefit, but maybe on some level, universally for this year, there's something that is in the cards that we need to keep awareness of.
It's 2023. When we add 2 + 0 + 2 + 3, it equals 7. So that creates what we call a universal year number of 7. And so the year number, universal year number, is an umbrella, if you will, okay, that is over top of us. It influences all of us. Now, each one of us is somewhere within a 9-year cycle. You and I are in a personal year of 8 this year. Okay, that's about business. That's about money. That's about abundance. That's about setting boundaries and understanding your worth and all that kind of stuff, right? But on top of that, we are under the influence of the umbrella of the 7. So the 7 causes us to go inward. The 7 is so interesting. The 7 relates to introspection and reflection. It's asking all of us to get in our caves. And it can be very difficult because for someone like yourself and myself, we are in an 8 year, which is super active. This is about manifest things. But the universal year is saying, no, get back in your timeout chair. Think about it some more. I'm like, damn it. The 8 only comes around once in a 9-year cycle. I want to take advantage of it. Right. So sometimes we can feel frustrated. Sometimes it's in alignment. Those who are in a 7 personal year, for example, might have difficulty in this year because they've got double the amplification of the 7. If your life path number is a 7, yours and mine included, the 7 universal year is a double amplification, asking us to go within, think some more. Even though our biggest job is to learn how to drop from our heads into our hearts, stop thinking, start feeling. It's that influence is still there. So it is a very, very difficult energy this year. There's no question. The 7 is bringing to the surface things that have been unseen. So a lot of scandals, a lot of stuff in the news, a lot of revelations. I'm not going there, but anyway, there's a lot of stuff that's come up in the news, which is revealing itself right now that some people don't want to see it, right? But it's there. So, but it's a very spiritual year. It might cause you some confusion because you feel like you want to be by yourself and you might think there's something wrong with me in my relationship because I don't want to spend time with this person. Give it some time because the 7 is asking all of us to withdraw. Right? We're all going to need more time by ourselves this year. Now, the good news is that as we come into September, October, we'll start shifting into the 8 vibration, which will be next year, 2024. 2 + 0 + 2 + 4 = 8. We'll be in our 8 vibration, which will say, I can finally make a decision. I can finally sink my teeth into something. I can finally get this bus rolling. That's going to feel a heck of a lot easier than the energy that we're in right now.
So things are going to move a little bit more next year than they are this year.
100%. Yes. Yeah. This is who am I? What do I want? Where do I go?
And there's nothing wrong with reflection and looking at that. There's a time and place for all of that because it's an important part of staying true to who you are. So,
that's right. Absolutely.
Sounds good. Is there anything else? I know you have a community online. It's called,
Clarity Seekers Community.
okay.
Yeah, and we're having a blast in there. Clarity Seekers Community is designed to support those who are energetically sensitive. So your audience, obviously being empaths, are definitely a good fit for here. I'm excited that Michelle's going to be a guest speaker, doing a 2-part talk in our group coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Very soon anyways. So yeah, there's about 65 master classes in there right now. There's the recordings for each one. There's PDF documents. We have live events about 8 times a month. And you can check it out on my website at numerologist.com.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
And it has been a pleasure. I'm
Likewise.
sure everybody has enjoyed learning and is even more curious about the numerology and what that helps them see, gain awareness of.
Well, I teach numerology in the community, so and I obviously do readings as well, but I just love to help people learn how to speak numbers. That's and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share that today. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So everyone, till next time, enjoy your days and love, love, love. Okay. Talk to you soon.